What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Hands-On channel. I'm glad you stopped by. We've got some important stuff to talk about today. Probably the biggest constitutional crisis that I'm aware of, at least that I can think of, since the Civil War is taking place right now. And so, if you don't know, if you're in one of these other northern states that has no idea what's going on the southern border, there is an invasion going on. Like 50 some odd Texas counties have already declared an invasion. And later on, I think it was yesterday or the day before, Texas officially declared an invasion going on the southern border. And the important significance there is that Article 4, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution states that the federal government is supposed to ensure a Republican form of government and protect the states against invasion, protect our borders against invasion. And they're not doing that. So now they're working a little, dirty trick loophole, wormhole thing that they've worked up to basically use our own law against us, is what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to figure out how to say this the best way. But basically what they're doing is they're claiming all of these illegals that are coming in right now are asylum seekers. They're not actually breaking the law just to come in here and violate our law. They're actually seeking asylum. So don't you know, Biden and all his lawyers, and now he's using the Border Patrol, a federal agency, to basically roll out the red carpet for these people and allow them to come in here and seek a type of limited citizenship. And then, of course, that will lead to mass amnesty one day or whatever, and making them, voters. People that are low information voters. It really doesn't even matter that they trend to vote Democrat. It's the low information part of it. They're bringing people in that weren't raised with the United States value system. They were raised under a socialist system. So it's going to be a lot easier to sell people like that a socialist ideology in the future than it is people that were raised on individual liberty and self-governance and stuff like that, right? So these people that are coming in now are more susceptible to tyranny in the future. That's really I can't sugarcoat it. That's what it is. So when I woke up today and I started looking at the news and I realized that civil war is now trending, and several states are backing Texas's play, I thought, this is a worthy thing to look into and talk about, especially because it pertains to the Constitution so heavily. Yesterday, Texas's governor, Greg Abbott, he declared that Texas's right to self-defense supersedes federal statutes. And he's absolutely right. You can go look up the 10th Amendment of the Constitution and learn more about that. But the states have rights. And especially when the federal government is intentionally avoiding enforcing the Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution, then Texas has a way to shoot back at this. Now, we could argue all day long whether the recent Supreme Court ruling was right or wrong. I think it was absolutely wrong. And Amy Coney Barrett and the other one, Kavanaugh, I think it was, that voted with the Democrats to throw out Texas's request. Texas was basically saying, hey, federal government, you can't come undo our barbed wire and our razor wire that we're putting up. Concertina wire is what it's called. They're putting up these coils of concertina wire and doing all sorts of things, the floating barriers and all this other stuff that Texas is trying to do to control where they're not even trying to stop. Abbott even declared that he's not trying to stop the illegal immigration. He's trying to control the access where they're coming through. So they're putting this stuff up on places where it's highly likely that people are going to drown if they try to cross the Rio Grande at that Texas park, Eagle Pass or whatever it was, right? So that was the reason Eagle Pass was selected, was because there was a massive influx of people coming in there, and Texas was like, hey, we have to do something to stop this. At least send them over to the approved locations, the approved checkpoints where people can come in across the bridges and stuff like this. So let me read to you what Greg Abbott said the other day, and he's absolutely right. Despite having been put on notice in a series of letters, one of which I delivered to him by hand, President Biden has ignored Texas's demands that he perform his constitutional duties. Again, Article 4, Section 4, to name one. There are other duties as well, but we're going to stick to that one. President Biden has violated his oath to faithfully execute immigration laws enacted by Congress. So, that's the important point there that he's making, is that we have three separate but equal branches of government. Congress makes the laws, not Biden. That's what he's kind of saying. Instead of prosecuting immigrants for the federal crime of illegal entry, President Biden has sent his lawyers into federal courts to sue Texas for taking action to secure the border. It's true, guys. The MSM is not going to tell the masses this side of the story. So that's why I feel it's important to talk about this, no matter where you stand on immigration. If you think our immigration laws suck, I could probably, be compelled to agree with you. But the proper way to do this is to change the immigration laws through Congress, the people that make laws, not the president just willy-nilly doing some executive order or sicking the DOJ on Texas for trying to do their own thing and protect their border when Biden fails. President Biden has instructed his agencies to ignore federal statutes that mandate the detention of illegal immigrants. The effect is to illegally allow their en masse parole into the United States. And he's absolutely right. They're basically just looking the other way and letting these people come in and do whatever they want. And we're talking about, again, some of the worst of these countries are being dumped out intentionally on our border. So we're talking, gang members, violent felons. Look at the fentanyl crisis. Look at the human smuggling aspect of it. This thing is a multi-headed demonic hydra that is infiltrating and invading our southern border. Back to what Greg Abbott was saying. By wasting taxpayer dollars to tear open Texas's border security infrastructure, President Biden has enticed illegal immigrants away from the 28 legal entry points along the state's southern border. So that's what I was trying to say. Abbott's trying to direct these people to the 28 legal entry points, not these, random ones that put people in danger and also violate people's property rights. So back to the 28 legal entry points along the state's southern border, bridges where nobody drowns, and into the dangerous waters of the Rio Grande. So he's trying to direct people to the proper place where we can at least get a proper head count and stuff like this. But Biden doesn't want that. They say they're hurting people. They say the other day they tried to accuse Texas and the National Guard of drowning some illegals that were trying to cross. Those illegals made that decision when they got in the water. Had nothing to do with the people on the other side of the border where they're not allowed to come. So it's just, it's so stupid. The last thing Abbott said here, and this is the most important part because it cites the Constitution, is this. The failure of the Biden administration to fulfill the duties imposed by Article 4, Section 4 has triggered Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3, which reserves to this state the right of self-defense. For these reasons, I have already declared an invasion under Article 1, Section 10. Clause 3, to invoke Texas's constitutional authority to defend and protect itself. That authority is the supreme law of the land and supersedes any federal statutes to the contrary. The Texas National Guard, the Texas Department of Public Safety, and other Texas personnel are acting on that authority, as well as the state law to secure the border. They're also, they rolled out a law a week or two ago that they're going to start arresting these people that are here illegally. And that's what they should do. Arrest them and then deport them. But they're probably not allowed to do that under Biden's rules. So this was Abbott's statement. It was huge. He's basically citing the Constitution. He's got constitutional law and scholars behind him that say, yes, this is exactly the right thing to do. The only problem I have with it is that they should have done it 2.5 years ago, before the 14 or 15 million people were allowed to come in here. But the bigger news today is that half the country, 25 other United States governors have declared they're with Texas. They're backing Texas up. Now, I guess this could play out a multitude of different ways that I'm, not prepared to talk about indefinitely, but what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments. How is this going to play out? Could this lead to civil war? I see one scenario where, Texas already has these troops out here and Biden orders them insurrectionists or whatever you'd say and rebelling against the United States. And he tries to use the 14th Amendment, I believe it is, to either get rid of Greg Abbott or, to come in and take control of Texas. Although, I mean, we're getting into some real constitutional problems here because, again, the 10th Amendment says all rights are reserved to the state that weren't, dictated by these constitutional rules, the supreme law of the land. And the constitutional supremacy clause gets overlooked a lot. The supreme law of the land means the Constitution is supreme, and every other law must adhere to and line up with that Constitution. It can't be outside of the Constitution over here. Although that's the dirty little trick the Democrats have been doing for years and years and years, is that they know through their communist, Marxist-controlled indoctrination, brainwashing education system that they've got a whole bunch of little mushheads out there that don't know anything about liberty or self-governance or any of that stuff. Instead, they've been taught a lot of Marxist philosophy. And because of that, they're easily manipulated. So we're in a world of hurt, guys. We're in a lot of trouble. It is good. It does give my patriotic core being some kind of like a spark of hope that at least Texas is standing up to this. At least 25 other states, including Alaska, is standing with Texas. That's huge. Now, when it comes down to it, what does that mean? I mean, do they, back them up in theory, or do they back them up with boots on the ground? I don't know. But this could be the making of Civil War 2.0. It's certainly not going to help Biden either way it goes in the polls. He's destined to lose in 2024 if it's a fair election, if it's a fair contest. So, anyway, this is huge, man. Huge. One of the ways I see this could go is, again, Texas, arms up. There's some sort of conflict that goes on, and you have federal troops, firing against state troops, the National Guard of Texas. And it could escalate from there. Because at the end of the day, a lot of the people that work for the federal government are from Texas. So they're going to have family and friends and personal experience living in and around a place where an invasion is taking place. I remember reading about something years ago. I haven't heard it talked about in a very long time. But there was this, let's call them extremists, but they weren't really extremists. They were sort of mainstream liberal Hispanics. But they had this whole goal of something they called La Raza, if I'm saying it right. And it was basically the reunification of Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, several southern states, parts of California, the reunification with Mexico. Because, they say we stole all that land all those years ago. And you could have an argument about that, but hey, these people have openly stated that their end goal was to flood the United States, especially the southern states. So Texas is right smack dab in the middle of the crosshairs. I guess the question is, does Texas have state rights? Do they have the right to self-defense? Do they have the right to exist? Because if you don't have borders, you don't have a country. You definitely don't have a state. And it can easily go out of control. Arguably it already is spinning out of control. How likely is it that this turns into, a full frontal Civil War Part 2? I don't think it's really super likely yet, but lots of other things could happen, tomorrow, for example, that would change my mind completely. But at very least, it seems weird to say he's standing up because the guy is in a wheelchair. He's wheelchair bound, but at least someone is standing up for the Constitution and what our country is supposed to be. And we need to follow the supreme law of the land all the time, no matter what. So if we don't like it, we can amend it or we can change it. We can elect people that can go in there and change those rules. But until they're changed, these are the supreme laws of the land, and we must follow them and adhere to them. So anyway, guys, I appreciate you tuning in. Let me know what you think. Is it Civil War 2.0? I mean, how likely is it? Tell me what some of the scenarios you think could play out. I mean, will Biden just back down and cave? I mean, that's one possibility. Although, again, I think that leaves egg on his face. So he doesn't want that going into a really shaky election year. And so God willing, we'll all make it to that, end of 2024 when the election actually happens. And maybe this time around it'll be at least perceived as a fair contest and there won't be all these shenanigans and weirdness going on. And we can just move on and go on to the future with hopefully a brighter vision of what the future is, like maybe building a wall or, doing something. I was thinking about that earlier. I was thinking about something that Ron Paul said years ago. And it so rings true when you taste a little bit of authoritarianism. The wall that could be built to keep people out could also be built to keep people in. And as I was coming out here to make this video, I had a funny thought. I thought, maybe the wall we really need is not along the southern border, but around the swamp, around Washington, D.C. Since all the freaking criminals are already inside that small little area, maybe that's the wall we need to build. Build a wall around Washington, D.C. and go back to these United States of America, not the United States of America, where the feds have supremacy over everything. Screw that. We're a nation of states that have different viewpoints. And that's what's so great about the country is that if you don't like something that's going on in Texas, you can move to New York City or vice versa, which is exactly what's happening. People are escaping these liberal cesspools in favor of red states. That's the facts. All right, appreciate it, guys. I don't want to ramble on too long. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you're thinking about all this stuff. What are you doing to prepare for the potential of Civil War 2.0? Because I think at least the potential is there. I'm not saying it's coming, but feels more possible than it did a few days ago. Anyway, as always, I stand for liberty to the bitter end. I hope you do too.